Resilience is the ability to persist over time.
In the Manila Bay and other bays that experience red tides, it is the marginalized that is affected in health and in economy.
Engineering is the ability to absorb, thrive, and then recover. The faster you're able to recover, the more resilient.
Sa Pilipino, ito ay katibayan at katatagan sa mahirap na sitwasyon at ang kakayahang bumangon muli.
Yung ecological naman, the ability to adapt. Yung evolutionary resilience, vale, to really innovate and be creative.
Resilience is really being able to spring back from adversity, but it should have learning, and therefore it strengthens you to be more resilient than before the adversity came to you.
Before COVID-19, the Philippines was already on to SMT-based measures to improve its resilience capacity. COVID, the country was awakened to the need for resilience of our economic, health, and educational status as well.
The country as a whole is, I think, not so resilient because while we have the capabilities, the opportunities, and the resources to cope with COVID-19, the whole body is suffering because the leadership and management is not working so well. When it comes to individual resilience, those who have more resources, capabilities, and opportunities will be more resilient than those who are not.
A lot of the problems really may be interconnected, vale. You have to look at it from a holistic point of view. It encompasses more than natural sciences or physical problem, vale, but also it gets into the ecological, biological, as well as social pa nga.
Among issues and problems we have are poverty, ecosystem destruction, climate change, and variability.
Much of our attention is placed only after the disasters happen. What we should do really is to take early action years before the hazard strikes, and we should put our attention and our resources into that type of planning.
We need SMT-based transdisciplinary and inclusive approach to coping with possible hazards.
The fragmentation of society needs to be resolved for resilience.
Communication is very, very important, and we should communicate to the people using not just scientific communication means, but through arts, music, understand the mindset of the Filipino people so we can communicate better.
Well, the way to move forward is interoperability.
So we have to do a lot of work as a person, as a community, and as an institution to really have resilience as one of the values of the Filipinos. Yung tunay na resilience na towards improvement.
Building resilience requires sustainability science inspired by transdisciplinary approach.
To be sustainable, you have to be resilient. To be resilient, you have to be sustainable.
Go natural. Go with nature's flow. Non-structural or natural interventions, as well as good planning, is the most sustainable.
Finally, we need to harness and strengthen the Filipino spirit of bayanihan.
Pero dahil kami ay nasa academic,
pinag-aaralan namin yung mga ano talaga ang kailangan natin not only for ourselves but for a people as a whole.
Resilience ng mga Pilipino towards the collective effort among communities and the strengthening of
Resilience Live.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the special anniversary episode of the Resilience Live webinar. We're thrilled to have you all here today as we celebrate this milestone. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that our previous episode was unfortunately rescheduled due to Typhoon Karina. We hope everyone is safe and well. The episode for today is a combination of episodes 11 and 12, which also coincides with the anniversary of the webinar. Now, before we dive into today's program and introduce our distinguished speakers, we want to take a moment to recognize and appreciate those of you who have been actively participating and engaging with us throughout this webinar series. Your energy and involvement have truly made this series special, and as a token of our appreciation, we've decided to award a special prize to one attendee who stood out with their consistent engagement. Stay tuned to find out who it is. Before we proceed, let's all take a moment to look back at the incredible progress we've made together through watching this compilation video.
When career scientists, so to speak, are able to partner with citizen scientists, then that's where all of this good work can happen. This has become quite a powerful tool, and in fact, not just a tool, a powerful platform for collaboration and getting good science out there.
We have found out that academics or people or scientists in the universities can go beyond the research and participating in response efforts actions. They can actually take part in not just the response, but also planning communities, helping the local government units plan their communities for better prevention and mitigation of hazards, for better climate change adaptation, and also during the recovery and reconstruction phase of a disaster.
When we talk about sustainable coastal development, different words come to mind. There is economic interest, environmental interest, social interest, and many other conflicting interests. And our job is to balance all these things. Clearly, this is a multi-criteria problem. And of course, to solve a multi-criteria problem, we need input from experts in different fields.
As researchers, I encourage everyone to be curious, to gather all your researches to know as much as you can. Being curious makes you informed, makes you study, and makes you know a lot of information regarding these events. Take actions in different forms, helping your community or conducting researches for the improvement of the community, and look after one another. And most importantly, as the society of young people, be part of the future problem solvers.
Some of the key takeaways, and to kind of pull things back out, is really it's important that we focus on co-producing knowledge with communities and with government. And so, as an example of that, looking at some of the governance structures that we've seen, there's much more collective, sustained demand for disaster risk reduction measures where we have that discourse, where we brought in a diversity of different perspectives. There's a healthy conversation that evolves over time, and that's sustained. And again, really the big thing, and I think the really interesting insight from this is that there's much better risk balancing. So it's not necessarily about putting all of our eggs in one basket when we talk about future risks for climate change. As a result of that, we might actually end up with worse outcomes for our communities. And so those much more strategic groups, that diversity of perspectives, is achieving those outcomes in a much better way.
We need to encourage everybody to think about the planet as being a finite resource, and the fact that this planet is our only refuge for both humans and non-humans. This is all there is in the galaxy as far as we're currently aware. And we need to understand that the needs of science and business have to start taking account of all knowledges and all stakeholders, including the non-human. because it's only by building relationships that understand the perspectives of everything and everyone that we can really start to move forward.
It's more than just passing geological information. It's about thinking about what is important to the local community and putting the science and the geology in the context of that. We as scientists tend to think that our work is all important, but it's very humbling and very necessary to put it in context of what people really need and then to work with that so that you can make it useful.
Meron tayong maraming iba't ibang pananaw na hindi isolated dahil meron tayong pamana ng iba't ibang panahon, iba't ibang kalinangan na banyaga, ay lahat ay nakapasok sa tinatawag sa o ayon kay Edouard Glissant, yung nobelista, pilosopo ng Martinique, tumong sa wikang Pranses o na tinatawag ng mga Latino sa Ingles, pluriverse. Marami tayong iba't ibang pananaw sa mundo, sa kalamidad, sa tinatawag na kalamidad, pero ay lahat ay konektado. So walang universal na katotohanan tungkol sa kalamidad.
Two elements are likely to define our daily lives in the future with climate change. One is water and the other is fire. Water, fresh and the lack of it, or the excess of it in the form of flood, and fire and the excess of it, and fire where fire is perceived not to belong, that is, in the urban environment.
So, geoheritage is the part of non-living nature that we identify as important enough that we should be conserving them. And the conservation of that important part of non-living nature, that's what we call abiotic nature conservation or geoconservation. I don't want the geoheritage messaging to overpower yung call that we have to conserve this area because these are ancestral lands of indigenous people. I don't want to take away that spotlight because ayokong ma-convince yung mga tao na conserve natin kasi mahalaga yung non-living nature. When in fact, we should already be concerned and conserving the area because these are ancestral lands. These are the home of so many people.
Next, we have a special message from our Executive Director, Dr. Alfredo Mahar Francisco A. Lagmay.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to welcome you all to the anniversary episode of the Resilience Live webinar series, an initiative that stands at the intersection of science, education, public service, climate change, and disaster risk management. Today, as we celebrate this milestone, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to all our partners, speakers, and participants who have come together to make this webinar series possible. Your dedication to advancing knowledge and fostering resilience is truly inspiring. Over the past year, we have been privileged to learn from experts across various fields. Their invaluable contributions have deepened our understanding of how research can be leveraged not just as a tool for scientific inquiry, but also as a powerful means for community empowerment and resilience building. These discussions have shed light on the ways in which we can better equip ourselves to face the challenges of our time and foster sustainable development. We are also especially grateful to all our partners and attendees who have shown such great interest in each of our episodes and actively participated in the discussions. In a world increasingly impacted by climate change and environmental disruptions, the importance of understanding our planet's natural systems cannot be overstated. The ability to anticipate, prepare for, and respond to these challenges is critical to safeguarding lives and communities. It is through knowledge, shared experiences, and a collective action that we can navigate the complexities of our changing world. As we turn a new page, we look forward to your continued support, not only for this webinar series, but for the entire scientific community. As we engage in these discussions, let us remember that resilience is not just about bouncing back from adversity. It is about learning, adapting, and transforming our societies to better withstand future challenges. We encourage each and every one of you to remain curious, conscious, and committed to exploring how we can all contribute to a more resilient society. As the saying goes, success is the sum of small efforts. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the enlightening series of discussions that we have prepared.
Behind every successful event is a dedicated team working tirelessly to make it happen. We're proud to share a glimpse of the incredible people who have brought this webinar series to life.
Hi everyone! Hi everyone! Hello! Hello po sa lahat! Hello sa mga suki!
Hello everyone!
Hi guys! Hi everyone! Thank you for your continued support sa aming webinar series. Akalain nyo yun, umabot na ng 1 taon. Anyway, kilala nyo na siguro ako as your host. Pero before ako i-alay na maging host, ako yung naka-assign na mag-share ng slides sa screen. Yun lang. Thank you!
Hi everyone, thank you for being with us and watching Resilience Live over the past year. I'm Nay and I assist the host during the Q&A sessions and support other Resilience Live team members whenever needed.
Hello! Salamat sa 1 year na pagsubaybay sa aming palabas, ang Resilience Live. Ako nga pala si Ella. So, ako yung nakikipag-coordinate sa aming partners at nag-stream sa ating YouTube account.
Hi guys! My name is April. Happy anniversary first and foremost. Most of you have not encountered me yet kasi hindi ako madalas lumalabas sa camera. Pero secret lang natin, ako talagang minsan yung nag-reply sa mga emails at sa mga chat nyo sa Resilience Live and sa chat din sa episode. So, first of all, maraming salamat for staying with us for 1 whole year and we look forward to being with you again for the next year of Resilience Live. Salamat!
Hello sa mga suki ng Resilience Live. Ako nga pala si Arch and parte ako ng publicity committee ng programang ito. We hope na nag-e-enjoy din kayo sa aming programa and please stay tuned kasi marami pang pasabog ang next phase ng ating program. Thank you!
Hello po sa lahat. Ako po si Ella Santiago, parte po ako ng backstage and back-end team ng Resilience Live. Maraming salamat po sa walang sawang pagsuporta sa Resilience Live at makita-kita po tayo sa mga susunod pang episode. Happy anniversary!
Hello everyone! Ako si Julius Antique at isa sa part ng UP RI NOAA Center. Ang ginagawa ko sa team ay yung nag-email na sa mga participants. Ako po ay nagpapasalamat sa patuloy na pagsuporta sa Resilience Live webinar. Thank you so much and happy anniversary!
Hello everyone! Salamat sa inyong patuloy na pagsuporta sa UP Resilience Live Webinar Series. Ako nga pala si Audrey Gabriel at ako ang nakasign sa paggawa ng PopMat at naging Zoom Master from the previous episode. So, see you in the next episode!
Partnerships are at the heart of our success, and we're grateful for the invaluable contributions of our webinar partners. Now, let's hear directly from them as they share their feedback and experiences working with us.
Mabuhay! I am Vivi Bonto, the Vice President of AFS UPLB. Our organization is thrilled to be part of the first-year anniversary of UPRI Resilience Live. Over the past year, this project of UPRI has really brought us knowledge and kept us updated about the pressing issues of climate change and disasters in the Philippines. And as a partner organization, we saw how UPRI did an amazing work in raising awareness and fostering resilience across the country. With this, the AFS UPLB family would like to give our sincere congratulations to UPRI in reaching this milestone. Happy anniversary, and here's to more years in making a real difference.
My name is Ivan Fernandez. On behalf of AGEN, I would like to extend our warmest congratulations
to UPRI NOAA on their first anniversary. Your efforts to promote geoheritage conservation in the Philippines have been invaluable. We are particularly impressed by your work on the importance of preserving natural resources for both their societal benefits and environmental significance. We wish you continued success in your endeavors.
Hi, I am John Marquez, a marketing associate of Yaman Philippines. On behalf of the organization, we would like to congratulate UPRI-NOAA on celebrating their first anniversary. Your episodes are truly informative and insightful. I specifically enjoyed your previous episode on the Masungi Reserve, showing us the significance of the geology and biodiversity, spreading awareness and motivating people to protect this natural treasure. Once again, happy anniversary, and Yaman Philippines wishes you further success. Thank you!
Happy anniversary! Thank you for being an instrument in developing Filipinos' resiliency to natural hazards. We hope that you continue your important work.
Happy anniversary, Resilience Live! Congratulations and more success to come! From NOAA!
Happy anniversary, Resilience Live! From the Flag Modeling Component! Happy anniversary, Resilience Live!
Congratulations and happy anniversary, Resilience Live! From the admin team! Yay!
All right, let's now move on to our program proper. The Resilience Live webinar series is brought to you by the UP NOAA Center and the UP Resilience Institute in partnership with UNESCO International Geoscience Program or IGCP. Together, the UP NOAA Center and IGCP seek to explore geoheritage as a tool for developing resilience to natural hazards. We'd also like to extend our gratitude to our partners for this episode: the Lyceum of the Philippines Laguna Biology Society, the UPLB Integrated Natural Resources and Environment Management, the Association of Filipino Forestry Students, UPLB, the UP Volcano Tectonics Laboratory, the Mapua Malayan Colleges Laguna, the UP Rock Hounds, the Geological Organization of Partido State University, the Association of Geologists and Geological Engineers of Mapua, Mindoro State University College of Arts and Sciences, Yaman Philippines, the Center for Neighborhood Studies Philippines, the Philippine Association of Geology Students, Society of Economic Geologists Student Chapter, the Municipal Government of Rizal Laguna, the Earth Island Institute Asia Pacific, Future Earth Philippines, and the United Architects of the Philippines. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The prize for outstanding participation and engagement goes to...
Dimple.
Okay, I believe we had a slight technical difficulty, but the prize of the outstanding participation and engagement goes to Mr. Kyle Vincent R. Singson from the University of the Philippines, Los Baños Integrated Natural Resources and Environment Management. Congratulations! They have been chosen as the winner for attending the most episodes among all participants. And as a token of our appreciation, they will receive a copy of the book, A Timeline of Mindanao Disaster. So this is co-authored by none other than the UP Resilience Institute Executive Director, Dr. Alfredo Mahar Francisco A. Lagmay. Okay, Kyle, Sir Singson, one of our staff will be coordinating with you through Zoom about the details of how you can claim your prize. Thank you so much for your unwavering support throughout this webinar series. Let's also not forget about everyone else who joined us on this journey. Though there's only one prize winner today, every one of you played a vital role in the success of this program. Thank you for your enthusiasm and commitment. And now, without further ado, let's move on to the main event. Our first speaker for today is currently a licensed architect and environmental planner. She also leads Geolette Esguerra Design Studio, specializing in architectural, industrial, graphic, and set design. Her work is mainly influenced by pop culture, fashion, literature, and music. For 20 years, she has collaborated with top creatives, promoting design instinct and meaningful interdisciplinary solutions. Her designs weave tangible and intangible elements into rich, multidimensional pieces. Here to talk about placemaking in urban resilience, I am handing off the spotlight to architect Geolette Esguerra for her presentation. Architect Geolette, you may now share your screen. Hi,
Hello, hi
architect.
everyone. Hi. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. I am Geolette Esguerra. I'm an architect, environmental planner, and I'm also an editor and writer. I'm with Metro Magazine, ABS-CBN as well. So I've been in media for 20 years and an architect for 16 years. So as you can see, I'm in both fields and writing and editing and designing. They've been a big part of who I am right now. And I'm so happy to be here, invited by the UP Resilience Institute as part of Resilience Live on its anniversary episode. So I'm just sharing a quick outline of what we'll be talking about today, and we're covering quite a lot of topics, so I hope you can keep up a bit with me. I'll go as fast as I can, and I hope I can keep you energized and excited up until the end. So I want to ask, how many of you can still remember what your neighborhood playground used to look like? If you're a millennial like me, this might be outdoors with your friends on the street or in the office of your parents. And in my case, UP was my playground, especially the sundial and this octopus here because I studied in UPIS. If you're Gen Z, we probably didn't get to go out as much. So this might have been the backyard of your friend or maybe school playground. But wherever it is, there are specific memories that form part of the places that we remember. And these form part of our memories of our childhood. These are spaces we used to inhabit, and each of them have their meanings. But more importantly, it shows us where we came from and who we are. So I started talking about playgrounds and play spaces because I want to get you in a contemplative mode and just imagine, go back to the past, touch a bit on nostalgia, and think and feel, these fragments, these memories, and use it to connect the dots and look at some of the tools that I'll be sharing with you, which you might already know. But now that you have that in mind and you have that context, then maybe something will spark in you and you will remember something. So today I want to make a case for placemaking in the context of urban resilience. Placemaking is all about shaping spaces to give them relevance, value, meaning. Using it as a tool can enhance how you view spaces that you're studying or even the ones that you inhabit. When we talk about placemaking, it's always about asking a lot of questions. So how to evaluate the spaces we live in, how to inspire mindset and behavioral shifts to make our communities, our interactions, and our environments more meaningful. You can even think about how do we future-proof the spaces around new and existing technologies, around threats also. So there are a lot of things to consider. So first, let me introduce to you our first case study. This is with the help of my fellow ad hoc placemakers. So we don't have a formal organization, but we're a volunteer group composed of participants of Placemaking Pasig 2023. And these are from Greenpeace, UAP Diliman, Agos Kabataan, SWKP, and Bulacan State University. So we worked on two sites, Manggahan, in Pasig, Manggahan, and Pinagbuhatan. And this project makes use of the methodology of the Place Agency. This is the 5P framework. So there's the site, and then there's people, process, product, program, and place evaluation. So the idea is to increase the capacity and capability of people then facilitate a potential seeking process, and then our favorite, because I'm an architect, create a product, implement a product, or have a project. And then to sustain, there's creating a placekeeping program. And then afterwards, you evaluate the process and approaches in order to see, if you're progressing. That's really important, the program. And then when evaluating the place, we look into the built form. We also look at the self, and of course the community, very important, and the natural environment. So because placemaking is a form of community organizing, facilitating, and bringing people together, challenging communities to get involved was a big part of this endeavor. So here you'll see the first community engagement activity in Barangay Mangahan. So this event was a way to get to know the community through some fun activities, or at least we thought it was fun. There was human bingo, icebreakers, fellowship, and then in a way sharing neighborhood experiences and sentiments, and of course, food and drinks. So events like this have a lot of potential because it starts off, it creates lines of communication. It opens these lines of communication. And in a way, we got to know more people to tap as resource persons and got more volunteers as well who could mobilize. So this was a mixer. It was an informal mixer, and it was really to develop rapport and setting the stage for sharing of stories and histories. So you might think that it's a game, but Human Bingo actually is a social listening tool that sets the stage to connect the community. And breakout sessions can also come in place. So the approach here is to come in as an equal of the community without agenda, and to try to understand the story of the place and the people. So we can think of this as the first date. So this is to initiate the feeling of trust so that they can open up to possibilities, future collaborations, future meetings. At this point, you're not sure what the future product would be, or if it will be a successful collaboration. But this initiates these relationships and creates opportunities. And the next step after the meet and greet was to activate and enable co-leaders in placemaking. So we organized a placemaking workshop and stakeholder mapping. So this helped us gain more trust and develop a common vision with them. Like any process or any profession, there's a set of guiding principles. There's, your language. I know there are a lot of experts here, and sometimes it's hard to understand if you don't share common vocabulary or common principles. So this is a way to level the field wherein you share your knowledge, and they share theirs, and then you manage to find that common ground where you speak the same language. When you talk about site, you know what it means. And then when you talk about the processes and so on. So over time, you get comfortable with the vocabulary, the lexicon, and this is important in talking about anything on the built environment and the design process. So these are pathways of exploration and dialogue. And along the way, you inject discussions on principles and processes, and in a way, somewhat lead to discussions about potential solutions there. So through the next process, because at this point, you start bringing in the idea of placemaking and the importance of engagement in placemaking, people are encouraged to participate. So most of the time in communities, if you don't speak the same language, if you don't have that baseline of the terms and even I guess some of the principles, and may mga mahihiya, some might not speak up, or you'll just participate by listening but not really participate in sharing their knowledge, which is so invaluable in the process of placemaking. So through this, we empower people with a sense of agency and give them confidence and skills to take part in and lead in the placemaking process. So one of the other communities, so the other one was Barangay Mangahan, and then in Barangay Pinagbuhatan, engaged in a 2-in-1 activity. So this is a community workshop and asset mapping. So what we do here is you try to discover opportunities and connections between people and the place. So it's a group walking tour, and through that, sensory mapping, what you see, you try to map out. Of course, there's a lot of documentation, and then questions afterwards, and ideally, discussions and journaling after. So this is a discovery path, and it involves walking, and navigating whatever weather, but also it's an exercise in listening and really taking note of what people take note of, what people stop for, what people point at. So observation is really very important here. This activity is not really prescribing anything. It's really just sharing observations, and then afterwards you can synthesize. So there's you'll see the appreciation of certain spaces, and that's where you'll find which areas are important there. And finally, that at that point, as practitioners, you can start planting some seeds also in potential areas, and you can start co-designing, co-planning through workshops and consultation. And it's now time to harvest the trust that you've invested, that you've created with the community through planning, creating ideas, and creating that community action plan, whatever that project would be. So one of the things that we're proposing is this placemaking Pasig Pinagbuhatan area, Parian Creek Plaza area. What we wanted to focus on is the parking plaza outside Pinagbuhatan Elementary School and the adjacent length of one side of Parian Creek. So here we create a series of mural paintings, greening of the space also, and we found opportunities. All communities love basketball, so why not enhance that through a basketball court mural, creating spaces for people to hang out in with benches and greenery, and opportunities for games such as pico, patintero, or chess. So these are opportunities that we found based on all the activities that we shared and based on insights also from the community. So that's one of the tools. So in terms of placemaking, another one is something that I mentioned earlier, sensory mapping. We do this all the time, and this second case study involves sensory mapping methodology, and it's applied to urban space via the Poblacion project. So this one is a phenomenological multi-sensory approach in understanding the communities. And apart from discussions on the spirit of the place, it's really enhanced by the integration of the multi-sensory elements. So what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you taste, and it creates an even more vivid description of the spirit of the place. It also takes into account the tangible and intangible heritage of the different areas. So tangible is very easy for us. You see it, you feel it, you can touch it, right? But what about intangible heritage? So when you do sensory mapping, also you take a look at not just the streetscapes or the buildings, but you can also take a look at the ceremonial routes. Who among here does processions? So in Poblacion, there's a procession during Holy Week. So that path, that ceremonial path is part of intangible heritage as well. And we all know that Poblacion now has grown into a community also for nightlife, food and drink. So these are further builds. So it was even more enhanced. The olfactory and even the taste sensory maps of the area. So these are extensions of the community spaces there. So through this methodology, these are based on perceptions of the residents and the transients. This is really creating a qualitative scan and making use of phenomenological means in understanding the city's landscape. So what is there? What can you see? What are the vistas? What are the Instagrammable spots? Where do people gather? And then also in terms of smell, like what are the unique scents in the area? Mabaho ba dyan? Gaano kabaho? When you go near the river, how bad is it? But there's also there are certain elements that normally you judge them negatively. You'd say, oh, this is a negative sensory element, but then it also forms part of the experience. We also have to take note of that without judgment. Also taste. So the restaurants, delicacies in the area, what are the most memorable? What are the icons? What are the ones that people say, oh, you have to visit this area, because that also forms part of the sensory map of the community. And then touch, textures associated with the place. What seems permeable, what is touched versus what is not supposed to be touched, what seems dirty, what do you interact with. So all these things come to play, and all these are the questions that you have to regurgitate and keep asking people in some way through the narrative or through the post mapping interview. And then what you hear, the sound of traffic and noise, whether different parts of the day, like the reach of the church bell tower, or the even patterns of the taho vendors. Taho in the morning, in the evening it's balot, diba? So it forms these patterns that you have to understand in order to understand the community as a whole. So with these two case studies, these two approaches in mind, I am proposing to maximize placemaking as a tool in urban resilience. So placemaking can help transform communities to be more vibrant, more resilient, and inclusive. Placemaking within urban design offers us powerful means to help shape the future of our communities and foster a deep sense of belonging and connection among the community members. So we've shown that, in asking people, what do you think of your communities? What do you love about it? What are the different senses that you associate with it? We get a better understanding. So with this, it enriches the social fabric, and also, in the case of Poblacion, the economic viability of the urban spaces. In understanding that there are certain elements that you can maximize, then those would be those would be part of the recommendations. And finally, in the face of climate change and urban growth challenges, placemaking also offers a path towards more resilient cities. I want to talk a bit more about that. And really, like, in prioritizing green spaces, pedestrian pathways, or even bike lanes, placemaking contributes to reducing urban heat islands and improving air quality, encouraging active and healthy lifestyles. Also, with all that information, it's easier to integrate natural elements and green infrastructure into urban design. So, in terms of yesterday there were some flooded areas, so reducing flooding risks, stormwater management, and even encouraging and enhancing biodiversity. Like what I mentioned, activities on flood management and disaster risk mitigation can also benefit from placemaking. In disaster risk mitigation, it's important to involve the community. Most of the studies that and the workshops that I've been joining really encourages maximizing the participation of women, because they are so much they're so intertwined with the social fabric of the community, that they know how to help in terms of creating the routes for recovery, and also for finding finding the right spots, and basically knowing everyone in the community. So placemaking in the discovery of behavioral, using it as a tool in behavioral and cultural patterns that aid in disaster recovery. And finally, placemaking becomes a critical tool in building cities that can withstand and adapt to environmental changes. And with this, we are hoping to get your support on some of the projects that we've been working on. So first is in publishing a book on a placemaking playbook. This is the community engagement playbook towards placemaking. So the Pinagbuhatan and Manggaan experience. So we're just using that as our first in the series. And hoping also to get your support on sensory mapping. So completing the sensory mapping for these areas. And as well as our upcoming project in Malabon, which we will be launching in World Architecture Week. But also, if you have knowledge of other spaces, other places that we you would need help in terms of placemaking or analyzing these areas, we would love to work with the communities, or maybe even teach you the tools. We'd also love to invite you to be placemakers as well. So, and really use it as a tool in understanding your communities more, especially the ones that you have projects with. So I want to end with a question again. So, did the places you have inhabited in the past influence who you are and who you want to be? So, I want you to just go back and think of your playground, or did the places that you used to visit or go to in the past, did they help you become who you are now, what you want to be? Your advocacies, did they help you plot out uh, your purpose? Your purpose and the meaning of your life. Maybe they have, maybe they are still, it's still a work in progress, or maybe you are yet to discover that. But I hope this talk has left you with more questions than answers actually. So thank you so much, everyone. This is a QR code to the site. This is also my email address and on socials. So if you need anything, or if you want to recommend, or if you want to volunteer as a placemaker, we'd love to hear from you and there. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for your very informative presentation, Architect Geolette. And binigyan niya po tayo ng mga questions na to ponder upon. Pero sa kanyang presentation, nag-agree po ako na isa sa mga key advantages po ng participatory methods in planning is the way we engage with the community members, because this empowers them, and in turn, they are able to provide us answers to our questions, what we need to find out about them. And just like what Architect Geolette has said, people are naturally interested in the places that they live in, and but sometimes they may lack necessary tools. So this is where we as planners and practitioners can offer valuable assistance. So it is important to recognize the significance of sense of place, because it is crucial in playing because it has a vital role in urban planning, enhancing the architectural character of the area, supporting cultural preservation efforts and the like, and ultimately, it contributes to the development of inclusive and sustainable communities. So to those of you who already have questions ready for our first speaker, save nyo po muna, because we will dedicate the time for the question and answer portion after the presentation of both of our speakers. So before we proceed, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our Executive Director, Dr. Alfredo Mar Francisco A. Lagmay. Hi, sir. Okay. To continue our program, I will now be introducing our second speaker. He is a registered environmental planner and architect who served as the Commissioner for Planning of Metro Manila from 1979 to 1989, establishing the first Metro Manila Land Use Plan and Zoning Ordinance. He also served as the UN Urban Management Program's Regional Director for Asia Pacific, overseeing projects in 22 cities across 11 Asian countries. Since returning to the Philippines in 2004, he has focused on private consulting for various urban planning projects. He is also the past president of the Heritage Conservation Society of the Philippines. Here to talk about the contribution of heritage conservation to sustainable development, let us all welcome Architect Nathaniel von Einsiedel. Sir? Architect Nathaniel, you may now begin your presentation.
I want to first congratulate Architect Geolette for her wonderful presentation. For one, I am a fan of placemaking, and second, I am a passive resident. So we need to talk after this, Architect Geolette. Marami tayong pwedeng pag-usapan. Anyway,
yes, thank you.
My assignment in today's program is to talk about the contribution of heritage conservation to sustainable development. I have to apologize that I'm not as adept at manipulating slides from my laptop, which is kind of antique. So I've requested help in changing the slides. So let's proceed with the next slide, please. Okay, I'll talk about where we're coming from, or where I am coming from, insofar as heritage conservation and sustainable development is concerned, and then talk about the contribution of heritage conservation to sustainable development, and the need for strengthening the contribution, because it's still weak at this point in time. And yung heritage conservation is still weak, as I mentioned, and it needs to be strengthened. And then I'll draw some concluding remarks. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, on the context, let me start with some definitions. When we talk about cultural heritage, we're talking about all the beliefs, the values, practices, and objects that give a place, a town, a city, a province, a country, its own specific character and identity. Now, the term practices refers to customary traditions. Like, for example, yung mano po, yung pagmamano natin sa nakakatanda. Yung rituals, the yearly festivals that we celebrate. Yung ceremonies that we participate in. Now, also objects can either be tangible or intangible, and the architect Geolette mentioned this. Okay, in cultural heritage, tangible are the things that you can touch, that you can smell, that you can see, like furniture. The intangible are, for example, historical events or beliefs of certain people. Okay. Now, also, tangible objects can either be man-made, yung gawa ng tao, such as buildings, or natural, such as, for example, the Masungi Geo area, okay, or Chocolate Hills in Bohol, or the underground river in Puerto Princesa. These are examples of natural heritage assets. Also, when we talk about tangible objects, they can either be movable, for example, paintings or furniture, or non-movable, such as buildings, streets, and town plazas. Now, aside from all of this, there are also immovable objects that are huge. And for example, these are complete historic places like Binondo in Chinatown in downtown Manila, or in San Nicolas, or Escolta Street, or even the entire town of Vigan in Ilocos Sur, or the town of Taal in Batangas. Next slide, please. Now, how does this relate to sustainability? So let me first define what sustainability is, and this is lifted from the United Nations definition, that it is the ability to meet the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Now, when we talk about sustainable development, this is achieved through three functional areas. One is economy, second is environment, and third is society and culture. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 11 is specifically about sustainable cities and communities. And there is a specific indicator in goal number 11 that mentions heritage conservation, that it explicitly mentions an aim to protect the world's cultural and natural heritage, meaning man-made and natural heritage. Next slide, please. So let me go into what are the contributions of heritage conservation to sustainable development. Next slide. Okay, the first is that the protection of exceptional heritage properties, particularly natural landscapes. In this picture, it's shown our Banawe rice terraces. It gives our country and also, of course, the area in Banawe a unique sense of identity, of continuity, of pride, and of joy. And when these heritage assets are well protected, they contribute to alleviating poverty and inequalities because they provide livelihood opportunities. They feed people. They provide services like security and health through the provision of shelter, access to clean air, water, food, and other resources. Next slide, please. Also, preserving natural resources, including sites like the Chocolate Hills of Bohol, contains rich combinations of terrestrial and marine biodiversity, which is very fundamental to environmental sustainability. So preserving these areas contributes to environmental sustainability. Also, heritage assets are also important for economic development. Now here shown in the picture is the Tubataha Reef, which provides people with livelihood, not only tourism, but also food. So they also attract investments in ensuring green, locally based and decent jobs. And many of these are, of course, related to tourism. Next slide, please. Now here you see a picture of Crisologo Street in Vigan. So when this, when you go to a place like this, you have to consider, if this were torn down and you were to build new buildings, it would require importing a lot of building construction materials, which are, not energy efficient. But by preserving places like this, they embody an intrinsically more sustainable pattern of land use, of production and consumption. And so they, again, contribute to sustainable development. At the same time, heritage assets like this church in Molo, Iloilo, contributes to spiritual well-being of people. They are symbolic, and because of their symbolism, they enhance the feeling of place and belonging. They also engender mutual respect for others and the ability to maintain a common good, which are very important contributions to social cohesion in a community. Next slide. Now, another example here is, of course, the natural heritage of mangroves. A well-conserved and managed natural and historical environment is also very important in addressing risks associated with natural and human-made disasters. We know very well that when you preserve mangroves, it helps reduce the risk of storm surge and flooding. And so it's very important these kinds of natural heritage assets are preserved. They strengthen the resilience of communities and save lives. Also, in times of crisis, access to and care of heritage sites help vulnerable people recover a sense of continuity, dignity, and empowerment. This is especially true in places in Mindanao that have suffered some conflicts. It fosters mutual recognition, tolerance, and respect among different communities, which is a precondition for a society's peaceful development. Next slide. Now, despite of all of these contributions, Our Heritage Conservation Law, Republic Act 10066, does not mention sustainable development as one of its objectives. Neither does the country's policy on sustainable development acknowledge the contribution of heritage conservation. Therefore, there is a need to somehow continue to strengthen promoting heritage conservation because of its contribution to sustainable development. So moving on to the next step in my presentation, strengthening heritage conservation's contribution to sustainable development. Firstly, when we talk about preserving our heritage, this is a way of safeguarding our communities from becoming just like everything else that you see anywhere else. In other words, losing the unique identity of the place. So heritage, with its roots in centuries-old spatial practices, can safeguard and nurture the cultural specificities of location and fend off the uniformity that global standards tend to promote. Next slide. We're all aware also of our traditional ancestral houses, the bahay na bato. Okay? Now, for those of you who are architects, I'm sure you are familiar with the benefits of this and how they contribute to sustainable development. I mean, you don't need air conditioning in this kind of design. You don't need too much artificial lighting when you do have these large windows. When you do have these ventanillas, you have a lot better ventilation. Okay, and also the way the materials are used. The traditional architecture is low impact and very energy efficient. So retrofitting these buildings with new uses can better position our cities to achieve sustainable urban environments. Next slide, please. Also, incubating local traditions and values. You see here a picture on the top left of some of our local cuisine. And you also see the use of banana leaves instead of the usual styrofoam or plastics that is causing a lot of problems in terms of ocean pollution. So by preserving this cultural practices of using banana leaves, coconut leaves, bamboo, etc., and together with all the other intangible and tangible assets like the kind of music that we're familiar with, the rondalia, the folk dances, the arts and crafts that's shown in the lower right picture. So the best practices involve regenerating and converting our historic buildings and districts into areas where local cultural practices can be incubated, disseminated, and developed, and in the process, project the unique Filipino identity. Next slide. Now here you see Crisologo Street again in Vigan. And when you preserve a historically significant set of buildings in a district like this, they tend to bond communities together by evoking a feeling of shared lineage and destiny and a common identity, something that is uniquely theirs. I mean, you cannot see something like this in any other place. It's so unique to Vigan. Okay, there may be similarities in certain areas like in Cebu and in Taal, but still the uniqueness, the blend between the buildings and the streets are something that is very unique. And this arouses a sense of pride, of rootedness and ownership that potentially promotes people's health and well-being. Next slide, please. Now here you see a couple of old buildings which have been recycled. On top is the Nielsen Tower in Makati, across the Peninsula Hotel, which used to be the air terminal, the airport terminal, when the airport was still in Paseo de Rojas, which is now, which used to be the runway, which is now Paseo de Rojas. Okay, and this building has been turned now into a high-end restaurant. And so it preserves the building. Below is a picture of the Tutuban train station in Divisoria, which has been converted into a shopping mall. So by retaining and retrofitting these old buildings, the need for raw material extraction and consumption can be reduced. And as these existing structures are recycled, construction waste and debris are mitigated. And therefore, again, they contribute to sustainable development. Next slide. Also, we are quite familiar with the emerging or increasing popularity of cultural tourism. The top picture shows tourists that go to Intramuros, which is one of our major tourist attractions. And therefore, the preservation of places like this stimulates economic growth by boosting the tourism sector. Now, it doesn't have to be a large, major tourist attraction. The photo below is a small waterfall in Mahayhay, Laguna, which is very popular with local tourists, and which the community, the barangay in this particular case, fixed up, and they made it into a nice tourism destination. It used to be very difficult to get to the place, but now because of the barangay's initiatives, it now caters also to foreign tourists. Next slide, please. Also, we have a number of very historical, significant plazas. The picture here shows the plaza in Batangas City. You know, when these plazas are preserved, they evoke a sense of intimacy and authenticity and create places that are enjoyable to live, to work, and to play. And at the same time, their preservation increases the real estate values, the property values around the plaza. And it makes the place, a lot more pleasant to visit, to live, and to work in. Next slide, please. So let me just make a few concluding remarks. Next slide. So as more and more people gravitate more firmly towards sustainable practices, the conservation of heritage assets should be a cornerstone of sustainable city strategy, because heritage offers numerous benefits in all economic, social, and environmental concerns. Also, not only can heritage conservation help reconfigure our regions, towns, and cities to be more resource and energy efficient, heritage conservation can also create attractive and vibrant environments and communities for people to thrive in. In so doing, heritage regeneration areas can showcase the Filipinos' rich legacies of the past, as well as our aspirations for the future. Next slide. So, in conclusion, cultural heritage plays an important role in economic growth, poverty reduction, and sustainable development. It can also play a role in strengthening the resilience of affected communities. However, it is important to strengthen the resilience of these heritage assets, which are at risk, and make disaster resilience an intrinsic part of cultural heritage management. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for sharing such valuable insights in your presentation, Architect Nathaniel. So, my key takeaway from your presentation is that the importance of cultural heritage in shaping the lives of the people. And it is essential that we retain the valuable practices from the past, especially those related to sustainability and resilience, Additionally, preserving the original architecture of place is vital in maintaining its historical and cultural identity, aside from the fact that they are low impact and energy efficient, as what you have mentioned, and also integrating cultural heritage into the discussion of disaster risk management is crucial, as it ensures our approaches are not only effective but also deeply rooted in the traditions, values, and unique architectural heritage of the communities that we serve. All right, thank you so much to our speakers for the very insightful presentations. Now, let's dive into your questions. At this point, we will be opening the floor for questions any of our attendees may have. Please use the Zoom reaction button to raise your hand and wait for the host, me, to call your name and unmute you before speaking. For those who would prefer it, we will also entertain questions sent to the chat box. Those watching through Facebook Live or YouTube may also send their questions below. We would like to request everyone to include the name or names of the speaker you are addressing your questions to. Now, the floor is officially open for the Q&A session. All right. Okay, I believe we have a participant raising their hand. Miss Rishne Subihano, yes, you may now unmute your mic.
Hello, good afternoon. First, I want to say thank you to Architect Geolette and Architect Nathaniel for their presentation. It was very, um, um, you discussed it very well. But this is not really a question, but I just want to add, to Architect Nathaniel's, what he presented. Forests are also integral to cultural heritage, of course. We should foster community identity and environmental resilience by integrating forest to cultural heritage. However, the link between forest management and disaster risk reduction is often overlooked. And I hope in future discussions or future projects or programs that we or any of us will have, I hope we integrate cultural heritage into forestry practices so that we can strengthen both ecological sustainability and community resilience. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Would any of our speakers respond to the thoughts of our participant?
Well, since she referred to my presentation, maybe I should respond to it. Yes, I have to apologize that I forgot to specifically mention forests as natural heritage areas. Actually, we do have a lot of national forests in the country, and definitely these areas need to be conserved, particularly because they are most of the time also watersheds and are the source of water for many of the towns and cities that are adjacent to them. So definitely they need to be conserved, and they're part of the natural heritage assets that need to be protected. In fact, there is supposed to be a law on protected areas, and many of these forests are actually protected areas. The problem is that DENR, which is the main agency responsible for this, does not have enough people to monitor what's going on in a lot of the forested areas. I'm sure in the previous episode that featured the Masungi geo area, there's encroachment happening, and there's not enough people who are able to police these areas. And there is the system that DENR practices, which is what they call co-management with local governments, which is not the most efficient, particularly in areas where the local governments are fourth to sixth class municipalities who cannot afford to fill up the plantilla positions of their natural resources and environment offices. So how can you manage and protect areas when there are not enough people who will monitor and police the area. That's the major difficulty. And as our population continues to grow, there is the encroachment happening in the forests, and it really needs to be mitigated, but the measures to do so are challenging.
All right, thank you so much, Architect Nathaniel, for answering the thoughts of our participant. Okay, does anyone else have a question or perhaps a follow up to that? I think we have a participant raising their hand, Mr. Christian Audrey Gabriel. Yes, you may now speak to the mic.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for the wonderful presentation and a very informative presentation, Architect Nathaniel and Architect George. And I would like to give an insight regarding to the placemaking presentation of Architect Geolette that placemaking is a very important part of strengthening the community resilience. And as a cartographer, placemaking, yung placemaking is a way where the community can validate and locate the hazards within their community. So therefore, it can be more so it can be so the community can be more resilient to the hazards. Then I will follow up this with a question that what to Ma'am Geolette, Architect Geolette, that what are the challenges of integrating placemaking with urban planning for long-term resilience?
The biggest challenge with placemaking really is getting the right support from LGUs, because as you know, after every election, re-election, the barangay captains change, the mayors will change, and even the NGOs that we work with sometimes they change their priorities. So some of the projects that we were working on last year, it's deprioritized because of some changes also in the organization. So a lot of it also rests on because it's important that you get the support of the community, and because placemaking takes such a long time, as you can see, there are several steps. First, there's you meet with the community, you explore, and it takes a while to be able to propose something that the community will agree to. But then by the time comes, sometimes that project needs to be put on hold because maybe the area allotted will now be transformed into something else. It will be, the barangay will build something else in that area, or there are changes. So some of these things come into play, and these are really the challenges that we're seeing. It's important to get support of the community throughout the entire process, and that's why it's a long, I would say, like, it's a long process that needs commitment from the community also, that if they really want to look into this and analyze their community, then they also need to support it towards the end, because that's really the challenge, that people will see it through until the end. So in some cases, the placemakers are very willing and able, and have the tools in place already, but then the opportunities would, because of changes in leadership, some projects need to be put on hold. So sayang, diba? All the effort of the community also. And they were hoping for some things, and those are the challenges. So I think Architect Ninki also has insights on that, with the changes in the leaders.
Yes, elections coming up next year.
Yes, great discussion so far from our speakers and our participants. Let's see who else has a question. Okay, we have another participant raising their hand, Mr. Junar Plaga. Yes, you may now unmute.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. Architect Nathaniel and Architect Ma'am Geolette. So this pertains to the general planning. So which will be given the most priority, but the placement or the cultural heritage, because sometimes in planning the cultural conservation will affected. Thank you.
I didn't quite get the question.
Sir, yung sa pagplano sir ba yung may mga pag-placement na maapektuhan yung ibang cultural na conservation natin ba? Maapektuhan siya. So saan ba mas priority yung one sa planning sa general planning process ba?
Well, merong bagong batas ngayon, yung nire-require lahat ng LGUs to conduct what is called cultural mapping. So, kailangan kasi ma-identify sa bawat LGU ano ba yung mga heritage assets nila. There is a method of doing this, and it's called cultural mapping. Now, meron ding may inilabas na guidelines, I think DILG yata ang naglabas ng guidelines kung how to do cultural mapping. Pero pwede rin sigurong kung kailangan ng professional na tulong, there are I know for example the University Santo Tomas University, meron silang mga faculty members and students na nakakatulong gumawa ng cultural mapping. Anyway, once na ma-identify ng LGU kung ano yung mga cultural assets na gusto nilang i-preserve, dapat magpasa sila ng ordinance na i-preserve itong mga assets na ito. Whether they be buildings, it can be old bridges, it can be particular streets, it can be churches, etc. Anyway, pagkatapos, kailangan i-build in nila yan doon sa permit system. So pag merong magde-develop ng property, kailangan kukuha ng building, kukuha muna ng zoning clearance pagkatapos ng building permit. Dapat doon pa lamang malalaman na nung aplikante kung ano yung heritage asset na hindi niya dapat galawin. Yung kailangan niyang i-preserve. So kailangan ma-identify ng LGU and then ilagay sa batas. Kasi kung hindi mo ilalagay sa batas, mahirap mong ma-enforce. Now, this also goes to applies for projects of national agencies. Kasi ang nangyayari madalas, yung DPWH ang naninira ng mga heritage assets. So dapat binabantayan ng local government pag merong mga projects ang national government agencies like DPWH, ano ba yung mangyayari, ano ba yung gagawin nila? Baka nga maapektuhan, pareho na nangyari dun sa mga ng simbahan na heritage sa Bohol, di ba? Biglang tinamaan yung simbahan, nagiba, pag nagiba na, wala na. So sayang naman. So yung mga ganun, kailangan mabantayan, pero yun nga, kailangan din enforcement at saka vigilance on the part of the local government.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much for that comprehensive answer, Architect Nathaniel. I believe we have a comment here from Dr. Ben. So Dr. Ben was our speaker from the previous episode. He said, "Hi, for sense making. Thank you for that presentation. I guess you could also determine negative senses of place and thus assist avoidance in planning and personal visitation of some areas. Also, such place making could also be used for visitors to a place to help them appreciate it or avoid hazards. This could enhance a visitor's experience while protecting them and the place." Would you like to comment on that, Architect Geolette?
Yeah, definitely. But maybe something to consider also is that not to focus on the negative senses, but to the negative effect of what you perceive, because part of the sense placemaking and sensory mapping also is you deal with personal interpretations of their senses. So that's why you need a lot and you need to distill it because sometimes it's negative, like in terms of noise, diba? Pag maingay, or you hear the bell of the church, for you it's intrusive, but for certain people it's actually nostalgic. For example, the noise of train can also be intrusive, and therefore you can perceive it as a negative. But then for others, it, you know, depending on how they perceive it, it can also form part of their core memory because it's part of where they live. That's the sound of the tracks, of the train going through the tracks and so on. So all that is balanced, uh, and it's a great point that you made, that these some of these elements can be also perceived as negative, as hazards. So it's when you create the sensory map, those will be put in place as well.
Okay, thank you so much for answering, Architect Geolette. I believe we have participants still who are raising their hands. So, Miss Ina Amel Ramos, would you like to unmute your mic now?
Hi. Good afternoon. Wonderful presentation. I would just like to ask Architect Geolette Esguerra. Do you have a specific criteria for these places? Like this particular in Pasig, how did you get to choose these kinds of communities to determine which are viable for placemaking and development? I
So,
sense there are a lot of communities and spaces that are in need of this kind of studies and development. Also, how do we fund these projects?
so
Yeah.
yeah, this particular project actually was funded by Greenpeace. So they started the initiative in exploring these areas. And it is actually part of the movement towards studying the areas around Pasig River. So that's why these are the two areas, Pinagbuhatan and Manggahan. So in terms of uh, these projects usually start with someone just recommending their space, and taking the initiative to volunteer, and say that, oh, you might want to study this space, and this is also something that we're doing. I think we have some of our other ad hoc placemakers here in the room. They just joined in, but really it's a matter of opportunity. So whenever there is a place that is being recommended and suggested, we like to explore it immediately, because what we're trying to build is a playbook for the Philippines. I showed some examples of playbook from the United Nations, and the the Bible that we're using now is from Place Agency also. But we think we have a unique perspective also. So if we create that placemaking handbook for the Philippines, with our context and with our understanding of our places and the different areas that we have in the community, then we might be able to replicate it in other areas. So for now, at least in terms of how we're studying it, we're open to all suggestions. If you have recommendations also, we'd love to explore that.
All right, thank you so much, Architect Gillette, for answering their question. We have another participant who is raising their hand, Mr. Justine Kent S. Gabinera. You may now unmute your mic.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. To Architect Nathaniel, sir, first of all, thank you for your very informative presentation, sir. But I am very passionate about cultural heritage conservation. So my question is, if you are to retrofit heritage buildings, won't it diminish the value of our cultural assets? What's your take on this, sir?
Well, that is true, no? For example, yung mga lumang bahay na bato, yung original lumang bahay na bato, the toilets were outside the house. Right? Nasa labas, outhouse. Ngayon, pag magre-retrofit ka, gagawin mo, let's say, bed and breakfast yung bahay na bato, kailangan mo lagyan ng toilet sa loob. Okay? So, i-retrofit mo yung plumbing, maglalagay ka ngayon ng toilet fixtures doon sa loob ng loob ng bahay. In effect, binabago mo yung original. Pero that is part of what is called adaptive reuse. Yung kino-convert mo yung heritage structure into something that has a contemporary function. So hindi mo ginigiba yung buong bahay, di ba? Nire-retrofit mo lang. Merong there is a thin line because there are some, ang tawag ko, mga purists na gusto nila, let's say, yung tisa ang bubong, yung mga old, mga lumang bahay na tile yung bubong na imported from Europe. Eh pag nabasag na yon, paano mong papalitan? Mag-i-import ka galing sa Europe. Di ba? So, kailangan mo hanapan ng local alternative na pwede na. Okay? It's not that, para bang dinidiminish mo yung importance, pero it's out of practical necessity na kailangan mong hanapan ng alternative. Mahirap kasi yung pure na ipipilit na dahil yun ang original, yun ang kung tutuusin mo, dapat, for example, yung Casa de Acusar, dapat hindi nangyari yun dahil hindi na siya original eh. Hindi siya sa original location eh. But when you talk about the value of heritage conservation, the original location is part of it. Pero nagigiba na yung mga bahay. Yung mga may-ari hindi na kayang i-maintain. So, ang ginawa ni Secretary Acusar, binili niya yung mga bahay, dinisassemble niya, at tapos dinala niya sa Bataan at inassemble niya ulit. Di ba? So, ngayon, merong tourist attraction doon na napupuntahan ng mga tao and nakikita nila what the architecture was before. Pero I'm sure, hindi lahat nung ginamit nung sa bahay na yon are the original materials. So, I think we need to be practical para preserve yung significance ng heritage structure without necessarily having to insist on original products that were, or original materials that were used.
All right, thank you. We have a lot of interesting exchanges between our participants and speakers. Let's move on to the next question. For now, from the chat box, from Mr. Jeffrey Andrew Losloso. Are there successful studies where placemaking has been used to improve the resilience of rural areas? I believe this is addressed to Architect Geolette.
Yeah, so usually for rural areas, it's through economic resilience. So really maximizing the opportunities of the site and linked to agriculture and tourism. It's mostly practiced in the U.S. In fact, the U.S. has a rural placemaking toolkit. And it's under their Department of Agriculture. So, for example, like South Dakota, there's Webster. It's a small town, and they created a dog park. They added murals depicting the town's history, and then they also found an opportunity this time in Freeman Prairie. It's also in South Dakota. So this site, around 40 acres, they developed it to celebrate the region's natural heritage. It's a recreational area, so they have walking trails, they have all the endemic plants there, and then they made it educational as well. But something that you might find interesting, so we don't have examples in the Philippines though, but in Taiwan, they made use of placemaking for islands of Nanliao and Sihu. And these islands are actually vulnerable to climate change because of their geographical disadvantage. But then, in a way, it's also, this is what's been happening in terms of placemaking. Like it sometimes ends up focusing really just on tourism. So in this case, they strengthened their tours, they made like educational tours. They tapped into nostalgia, and then strengthened like the sightseeing area. So far that's what I've been seeing. So hopefully there could be more concrete examples and not just focusing on tourism and strengthening economic resilience.
Okay, thank you so much, Architect Gillette, for answering. We have another question sent to the chat box from Mr. Ralph Sotoridona. For both of our speakers, heritage conservation has been relevant in the development of cities and communities. However, this type of development seems to be an afterthought in some highly urbanized cities since heritage preservation and development has not been a priority for them in the past years. Some LGUs has just recently conducted cultural mapping, and it is just now that they are identifying heritage districts within their LGUs. Given this scenario, do you think that it will be more challenging now for LGUs to promote heritage development since it is now coupled with various urban problems that need to be addressed in order for the heritage development to succeed? Okay, who would like to answer first? Okay, sorry, Architect Nathaniel, you may go first.
Okay, well, definitely maraming ibang problema ang mga LGUs. So, what we're saying is that in solving or trying to solve the problems that their LGUs are facing, they should look at the possible contribution of heritage conservation. Okay. Now, marami sa mga LGUs natin, ang problema is kulang ng hanap buhay ang mga tao. Livelihood, employment, etc. Maraming naghahanap ng trabaho, maraming naghahanap ng livelihood opportunities. And heritage conservation is one possibility of generating those kinds of jobs. For example, through tourism. No? Now, it's not an afterthought. The idea of heritage conservation has been floating around except na hindi siya ginawang batas until Republic Act 10066 came about. Okay, so hindi siya requirement. And that's why not very many LGUs have adopted heritage conservation as a development strategy. But I'd like to cite the experience of Iloilo. Okay, ang Iloilo has been lucky for having a local chief executive in the person of Jerry Treñas, who has been a mayor for a long time, and then he became congressman, and then he came back as mayor, who started the restoration of plazas, of historic plazas in Iloilo, and up to now is still ongoing. And Iloilo has been generating a lot of revenue from its tourism sector. So yun ang nagiging tulong ng having a good heritage conservation program. Ang Taal, ganun din. No? After Taal got a UNESCO accreditation as a World Heritage Site, a lot of people now go to Taal to visit the place, and therefore it has generated a lot of businesses. Maraming mga lumang bahay sa Taal naging bed and breakfast. So hanap buhay, and then yung handicrafts nila, mas marami na rin bumibili, etc. So merong spillover effect yung heritage conservation in terms of generating livelihood, generating jobs, and spurring economic activity. So the law may be new, at saka ngayon pa lang nag-cultural mapping ng mga tao, pero it's never late for something that's good.
Thank you so much, Architect Nathaniel. Would you like to add on that, Architect Geolette?
Yes, I really agree with that. It's never too late for something that's good. It's never too late to start. And if you think about it, we're a young nation. We're still very young. Our cities are young. Our provinces or rural areas are young. So we're a work in progress. And as planners and practitioners, we can take a look at it from, we can project into the future, think of the future. And it's important that we start now so that we have this baseline information. So we need these maps, cultural mapping, sensory mapping. We need it validated by the people. And you start slow and you build on that. But without that, without those baseline studies, without starting, then there's nothing for future planners also to work on. There's no basis, there won't be basis for the laws that will be proposed in the future. So it's important to really invite all of you also to become advocates, especially of the places that you live in, to be the advocates of those, your provinces, your cities, where you live. Be the advocates for that, because we have 139 people here. Earlier, we have 160, I think, or more. If we can just imagine all of you as advocates for the places that you live in, and to start this movement, then it's never too late.
Okay, very, very interesting discussion so far. Let's keep the conversation going by addressing more questions from our participants. We have another one from Miss Carla Ganob for both of our resource speakers again. Recognizing the political risks that these placemaking projects face, from your experience, do you have any suggestions on how we can navigate these complexities and somehow save the project regardless of who is the LCE? How can we make the project sustainable and adaptable? So I think this is connected to what Architect Nathaniel has been discussing earlier. Who would like to answer our question first?
O ba yun?
Yes, for Architect.
Well, one way is actually recognizing and celebrating the success of certain local governments that have adopted good placemaking projects and heritage conservation projects. Again, let me cite Iloilo City as an example. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the Iloilo Esplanade, which is a form of placemaking. It started many, many years ago when Mayor Jerry Treñas was on his first term, and he asked me if I could help come up with a plan for the relocation of informal settlers on the Iloilo River. And I told him, yeah, we can come up with a plan for that. We need a resettlement action plan where we can resettle the informal settlers, but we also need a plan to rehabilitate the area that they will vacate, meaning the easements of the river. Okay, and so he was asking, what would be, what can we turn the river easement into? Well, I said, it's supposed to be an easement, so you're not supposed to build on it. So my suggestion is to make it into a linear park. And the rest is history, as architect Paulo Alcazaren was engaged by then Senator Frank Drilon to do the plan for the Esplanade. And what has happened is that the property values along the Iloilo River has gone up by 500% because of the improvement of the Esplanade. Now, and as you also probably know, Mayor Jerry Treñas is now back as mayor, and they are doing the other side of the river. So this is an example where a local chief executive appreciates the value of placemaking, okay, and supports it, and partners with other people who can provide the funding, etc. Okay, and so it needs to be recognized, it needs to be promoted, and in the case of Iloilo, they already are well recognized all over the world as an important city in the Philippines, and this has helped attract a lot of businesses to locate in Iloilo. So I think that helps in sustainability of the projects because by promoting the information, by celebrating the accomplishment of such LGUs, a lot more people get to see it, and then sabihin ng ibang mga mayors, kung nagawa ni Jerry Trena sa Iloilo, kaya ko rin gawin yan. So hopefully Vico Soto calls Geolette, and we get to implement the improvements that are proposed for Pasig.
Okay, would you like
Yes,
to add on that?
hopefully. Yes. Well, as a media practitioner, one of the things that we always emphasize is make it public. Take it public. Tell more people about it, and therefore involve more people in the project, so that they could also follow its success. And by doing that, in a way, you safeguard it from possible outside elements. Of course, support from the LGUs are very important, and support from the people, because at some point, especially for placemaking, sometimes people would lose interest over time, because it's new and novel in the beginning, but then when it gets, it gets busy, it will become very challenging for them to allot time. So it's important that you get to enlist more people as volunteers, and in the process, share the information. So there.
Thank you so much to our speakers for answering the question. Okay, going back to the topic of cultural mapping, we have a question from Mr. Joseph Aquino. Can the new cultural mapping law and the guidelines provide for digging cultural assets below the ground na natabunan ng development infrastructures? For example, there are information that there are tunnels below the ground somewhere in Camarin, North Caloocan City. Pwede ba hanapin ito at may fund ba to do that from any Philippine institution to research on such? This question is not addressed to any of our speakers, so feel free to answer the question. Who would like to answer the question?
Well,
Okay.
let me try to answer that.
Okay, architect.
Kasama yan sa cultural mapping. When you do cultural mapping, you're supposed to dig into the history of the place, and there might be hidden treasures that you can uncover, which literally nakubera na ng development, as cited in this example. Sa ano yun, sa Caloocan yun, now, yung funding for excavating that or for restoring that is something that could be explored with the National Museum. I think there needs to be some kind of a proposal, substantiated by some documentation, na merong evidence of this natabunan ng historical structures, and the National Museum may be able to fund the exploration of that. Well, like for example, there are these underground burial caves also in some parts of Rizal. But I think yun, hindi yata natabunan yun. I think napupuntahan ng mga tao pa up to now. But anyway, my suggestion is to explore the possibility of getting a grant or a research team from the National Museum to do the exploration.
Thank you so much, Architect Nathaniel. Would you like to add, Architect Geolette?
Just to build on that, for those of you who've been to Seoul, ayan, maraming nanonood ng K-drama dito. So if you watch Queen of Tears, there's Chongyecheon stream. It used to be the Chongye Expressway, but then they uncovered through our urban renewal project that it was actually a stream, and they opened it up. So it was formerly a freeway. So there's still a chance to reverse some of these things.
In relation to that, can I make a comment addressed to Geolette? There has been recent news that the Parex is being revived, the Pasig River Expressway. That to me is the worst kind of project that can happen on the Pasig River. And yung example that you just cited, the one in Seoul, used to be a river that was made into a highway. And then the government realized that it made more sense to return it as a river rather than a highway. But in our case, tinatayuan, there is a possibility that we'll end up with an expressway right on top of the Pasig River. Now, I don't know, but I think maybe the audience here will want to know what this issue is all about, and probably support the move to prevent it from the Parex from happening. Anyway, I thought I'd just bring it up because you did mention the river in Seoul. I can't remember for the hell of me remember how the name is pronounced of that river, but anyway, the one in Seoul.
Yes. That's right. Cheonggyecheon stream. So that's actually also Parex is also part of one of the reasons why we chose that site. So perhaps we can invite all of you again, maybe when we have a talk just specific to that project. So we can explore it. But I'm with you, Architect Von Einsiedel, for on your reservations and your strong sentiments about Parex. So
Okay, thank you so much for to our speakers. We're now down to our last question from the Q&A, from the chat box rather, from FP Mosalina. So this is addressed to Architect Nathaniel. Given the current challenges in the enforcement of laws pertaining to cultural heritage, can you mention a thing or two about that may be a silver lining towards a more responsible development or progress?
There are a number of places that have successfully used heritage conservation in promoting their municipality or city, and that has led to economic progress. It may not be that obvious to many people, but a number of cities have adopted heritage conservation ordinances. Iloilo City is one of those. San Fernando also has. Taal also has. Silay City in Negros Occidental also has. So there are several places that have adopted heritage conservation as a development strategy, and they have been reaping the benefits of this. But there are also examples of not necessarily full-blown heritage conservation ordinances, but something that has been sort of making or taking advantage of traditional festivals. We know very well, for example, the Ati-Atihan, the Dinagyang, the Sinulog, etc., which are very, very popular. And these are traditional festivals that the municipalities, the local governments that host them have exploited and generating the kind of attraction and tourist activities that these festivals generate. So this, can you imagine if there were a lot of other places that had similar attractions, maybe not as grand, but something that is quite unique because people are interested in seeing things and experiencing things, events that are unique, and that is actually the essence of cultural tourism, and that's, I think, the value of taking advantage of identifying what these assets are, and then turning them, converting them, transforming them into a development program, including placemaking.
All right. Thank you so much for that very comprehensive answer, Architect Nathaniel. We've had some fantastic questions and exchanges today. Thank you all for your engagement. But unfortunately, due to limited time, we will not be able to entertain all of your questions. You may, however, send them to the UPRI Facebook page as messages, and these questions will be forwarded to our speakers, Architect Geolette and Architect Nathaniel, after this session. Before we officially end today's episode, we would like to request everyone to open your videos for a quick photo op. Miss Nay will be taking our photos, so everyone, please ready your smiles.
Hi everyone, please hold your smiles for a moment.
Yung share
Okay.
screen.
Okay, so first panel, second panel, third panel, fourth panel. Okay, fifth. Okay, last panel. Thank you for your wonderful smiles.
Okay, we shall now move on to the end of our webinar. Thank you once again to Architect Geolette and Architect Nathaniel for sharing their time and knowledge with us this afternoon. As always, this webinar has been brought to you by the UP NOAA Center and UPRI in partnership with UNESCO IGCP. We would also like to thank our partners once again for this episode. You may react or raise your hands if you're present. The Lyceum of the Philippines Laguna Biology Society, the UPLB Integrated Natural Resources and Environment Management, the Association of Filipino Forestry Students, UPLB, the UP Volcano Tectonics Laboratory, the Mapua Malayan Colleges Laguna, the UP Rock Hounds, the Geological Organization of Partido State University, the Association of Geologists and Geological Engineers of Mapua, Mindoro State University College of Arts and Sciences, Yaman, Philippines, the Center for Neighborhood Studies, Philippines, the Philippine Association of Geology Students, Society of Economic Geologists Student Chapter, the Municipal Government of Rizal, Laguna, the Earth Island Institute, Asia Pacific, Future Earth Philippines, and the United Architects of the Philippines. For those who want to collaborate with us, you may reach us via the UP NOAA Facebook page, or you may email us at resilience.institute@up.edu.ph or info@noaa.up.edu.ph. Resilience Live will be held every last Thursday of the month, so mark your calendars. The next session will be on September 26. Please stay tuned to the UPRI Facebook page for announcements on our speaker and featured topic. Before we officially close this afternoon's webinar, please be reminded that participants will be issued a certificate of attendance once they have answered the evaluation form. You may find the link to the form in the chat box below. Please kindly submit the form within 24 hours. After this period, the form will close and we won't be able to issue certificates for any submissions made afterward. Thank you for your understanding. Again, thank you and see you all at the next session of Resilience Live. Once again, my name is Claire, and it's been a pleasure being your host today.
We will keep the Zoom meeting for 5 minutes to give time for answering the evaluation form. The webinar will close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.